Hello everyone, welcome back to Pominals. Hope we're all doing really well. If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It really helps the channel out. We're absolutely flying at the moment with subscribers, so I can't thank you enough. You guys and girls are absolute legends in my heart, so thank you much for that. You can go a step further, become a member of the channel. We do wonderful things like sponsor Domaku and things like that. It really does help spread a community. We've got Shangor on board as well from the Preston women's side. She's the captain of that, so it's a wonderful little community and we like to give back. And if you're a returning Pominozzer, good day to you. Hope we're doing well. So we've done the review for the men's senior side. Let's have a look at the reserve side, the old seconds, and they went down by 9 points to the Bombers at Windy Hill, and Windy Hill really did live up to its name. It was an absolute bloodbath in the terms of weather. It was bitterly cold and it was genuinely horrific, and it's kind of been a little bit of a case in point with the VFL side for the last couple of weeks of giving up leads or being in winnable positions and letting the teams back in. And they came out of the blocks flying, but really what happened after that was Essendon slowly pegged them back, and by the fourth they managed to flip the 9-point lead and take it themselves. And the boys really, it was a weird one because, again, it was like the AFL guys really went anonymous in the second half with the exception of a few. And that is probably, it's I wouldn't say it's a worry, but when we go into the individual players, there's a few individual players that probably are kind of looking at the 22 and going, I fit in there, and I slot in there. And it's a little bit, I don't know if it's pressure. I don't know what it is, but I would be expecting these guys to really impact. And I'm not blaming them for the loss. Do you know what I mean? It's a team game at the end of the day, but it did feel that they really died off in that second half, particularly in the fourth. And I'm looking at these senior players to really be the change, for a want of a better word, for a want of a better word. So let's have a look at the players that were involved. So let's go into the detail. But all in all, it was a poor result, and I really do think that they should have beaten them. It was definitely the AFL listed players at Essendon really did step up. So let's have a look at the players and let's see what we can find out. So first cab off the rank, Paddy Darwin. The numbers kind of deceive him here. 27 touches, 1 mark, 7 tackles, which was impressive, and the goal was well taken. But I was watching this game with just an ear in my mind of, obviously, he's replacing Adam Cerra, isn't he? And is he Adam Cerra? And in short, no. Definitely one of the players that in the second half really did go missing for me. And it was one of them games, like, he did some nice things, but it feels like them 27 touches for me, barring the goal and a couple of them, they didn't really even set up play. A lot of them are like just clearing his lines or handball into the side to a guy in traffic. And I don't want to be critical because I really like Dow. He's one of the guys that I really want to do well, but I didn't see anything when I was watching him as saying, oh, wow, he's cutting teams apart. He's getting a lot of the ball, and I always say this, stats are deceiving if you don't paint the picture. I looked at this game, and I didn't say, wow. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like I should be with Dow in this side. I feel like I should be looking and going, okay. Now, he's grinding, and his defensive work is impeccable. It's getting really good. He's really putting the hard yards into that. And 7 tackles, that's probably, for a lot of Dow haters, un-Dow-like. But, like I say, a lot of these touches as well are from in different positions and from stoppages as well. So it's not like he's finding the space. He is literally following the ball, which is his best job. But I just don't think in the seniors we can have a player like that. Because all the 5 that play there genuinely do something else elsewhere. So for me, I don't know what it is. And I don't know what he can do to change it as well, because I think his skill set is this game. But what I'm saying is the skill set for me isn't for Carlton Football Club at the moment without changing a dramatic lot about the system. I mean, it was a good game, But that was it. It was good. And I just don't feel like looking back at that game, and I've watched it twice now, felt like 20 of them touches, you needn't bothered. Do you know what I mean? That's where I was. And it might be harsh, and I don't want to be harsh on him because I love him. I want to see a little bit more impact from him per possession and really setting things up. And I don't really see that as I do from Chera. I see that from Chera. Up next is Jesse MOTLOP, and this is one of the guys that I was really disappointed in this week. And not so much his fault in the terms of that it was probably a tough game for a player of his ilk because the ball didn't really seem to go down there. I like the way that he runs back like Corey Durdin to really link up with his defensive craft, but he kind of went missing for me. And I had to watch, he's part of the reason I had to watch the game 3 or 4 times because I was like, surely not. But yeah, and he's a guy who I would be looking at Durdin and thinking that there will come a point in time that Voss is going to have to look at Durdin and go, is he impacting? I don't think he was splendid this week against Essendon. And he would be a guy who'd be like, you know what, I'd probably a shout. Him and Martin, probably a shout because I play both of them areas. And for me, he didn't really step up, and I'm allowing him a bad game. He's a first-year player, but I expect more from MOTLOP, and that was a poor game by his standards, in all honesty. Up next, the man who probably is always on the back of all the player cards at Carlton Football Club if there is an injury, and that's Lockie Fogarty. I'm going to say probably the same what I always say about Fog, and I like Fog. He's industrious, and would I have him as a replacement from Chera? No, I wouldn't. I think if Carlton are replacing anyone in the starting 22, I'd say you'd probably be looking at Kennedy would be the person that I would be looking at. This guy, if I look at them all as their injury replacements for a senior, it's probably him. He works hard. He works hard, and he's playing more predominantly on the ball, which is good. I like him. I just don't see him enough. He's a real good stopgap player, and I think the VFL is personally, for me, his level. It was an okay game. He linked up well with his midfield. He linked up well with his forwards. He tries hard. But I just think when we're talking about this series is about replacing players in the senior team, I don't think he's giving us anything that we don't already have in the system. He's going well, though, and he's really starting to show me some things of impact in the play. Like I said with Dow with his tackling, I'm starting to see that Fog starts to take the game on, which is really good, and that bodes well. And he is only young, so I do think there is scope for improvement. I'd like to see him really impact, though. You see there, he's got quite a few touches inside 50. I'd like to see him be a little bit more impactful in the terms of having a go himself. He creates space really well, and I sometimes think he forgets that. So it was an okay game. I did enjoy the majority of his game. Another guy that kind of went missing in the 4th, particularly, that I'm expecting him to step up, but okay game. Stocks, again, is a player that the numbers at VFL level really deceive, I think, what they're building. And it was a solid game. But the problem is when I was watching him, I don't see it at AFL level. And that is what irks me. And I know that's confidence. And I know, obviously, I'm well aware, more than most, that VFL to AFL is a huge leap. But I watch it and I think he doesn't get the space in AFL to do what he does in VFL. And I was watching him and it dawned on me, he's Nick Newman in VFL. And I think Carlton are using him wrong because I think here he doesn't play the traditional back pocket role that he plays in the AFL. He's got a lot more responsibility, very like Newman, looking to link up with his midfield. He's always there. He floats on the ball as well for the VFL side, like Newman does in the back half stoppages. And I really enjoyed his game here. There was 2 things that stood out, and I was one of the few that did have him out of my side for Essendon, and people were saying I'm harsh, and I want to validate why I'm harsh, is just look at how he uses the ball in VFL. It could be better, and I really want to see him get 2 or 3 weeks at VFL level to really cement that. So he's in a position that when he's in the AFL, he's got a bit more confidence. I want to see him hit these overlaps. You see it a lot. And for me, it's Nick Newman's role. I don't think you're ever going to get the best out of Stock. You've got to remember he was drafted as a midfielder. And I'm well aware that while Carlton are playing him down the back, there's a reason. And I see what they're trying to do with it. I want to see him, though, in the AFL, really take the game on like he does in that. And I don't think he can for the AFL unless you take Newman out. And honestly, go watch that game again, and I want you to have in your mind's eye Nick Newman, because he's the perfect Nick Newman. What he's doing in the VFL is. So in the AFL, we're really looking at spoils and defensive pressure. You've got to remember, back pockets are judged on them avenues. Defensive pressure, he averages 2. Do you know what I mean? Boyd had 7. So it's one of them things that you've got to look at. And in the VFL, you're really seeing that his ball use and his ability to overlap and look to turn into transition is poignant. And I want to see that. But like you look here at the top left of the screen, he's got far forward. You don't see him do that in AFL. And that's probably because he's not allowed to. And that is the thing there. For me, I'd say Jordan Boyd suits a back pocket role more than Liam Stocker, is what I'm saying. Unless Carlton find a way of really getting him them touches. He needs to have that overlap option. And I think it's there when you've got Sardi and you've got Doc there. I want to see him be a bit more bold. So I'd like to see him have 2 weeks in the VFL to really gain this confidence, then bring him back in. Because he is a very good player and he is in my best 22. I just want to see that level of confidence. And I think the only way you can get that is really sharpening and being 100% at VFL. And then you jump up to AFL. Jackie Carroll. This was a proper Jack Carroll game. Bit of time on the ball. And I would say if he didn't go missing in the 4th, he would have probably put his hand up for the Chera role. Because this was very Chera-like. He was always the link. Bit loose with the disposal. I want to see him. One thing I've noticed with Carroll, since he's come into the seniors, he's really lost the ability and the remembrance that he can find space in a crowded elevator. So for me, I don't think he's back in the seniors because of that. I want to see him really back himself in because he is one of the best. I would say he's one of the best players in the VFL at finding space. He's a natural player at doing it as well. He's a very, very accomplished footballer. So just go back to basics a little bit. I think he tries to do too much sometimes. I saw that in the AFL. Sometimes tries to do the spectacular. And sometimes you don't have to. But it was a good boundary. And he's got a really good base. And this is a guy here for me who can go up the gears very quickly. BRODIE KEMP, for me, this was the best game I've seen him play. And I said it at the start of the year. Playing him forward, I understood it, right? And then they played him back. And I was like, well, this is a bit weird that you're taking the risk of injuries. He played about 50-50 forward and back. And that is how he gets into this team. You got to remember, he was drafted technically as a defender who had the potential to go in the midfield. Unfortunately, the ACL injury cost him. I don't see him as a midfielder. I do see him as the swingman. I really think that Jack Lukosius role is BRODIE KEMP. And I think he's got all the skills to do that. He really links up well. I enjoyed his time down back. I thought one of that intercept mark down the D50 was the BRODIE KEMP I remember watching as a young kid and getting really excited about him. Peeling off his man. He's got very Marchbank-like movement down the back. And in the forward as well, he really made himself well. He would be the very accomplished third toe. So this is someone that here really is looking at that role. If he can cement that role, then we can start having the conversation of, do you take Plowman out, play him and Marchbank, play a smaller off the bench and become like a traditional, because of the pace we've got with Doc and Sard and their ball use, do we become a traditional back 7? Do you know what I mean? 7 defenders and he one of them. And he's going to be putting the pressure. If he can string 3 or 4 games like this, just sharpen it up a little bit. Very confident that Carlton have found the best role because that I was really impressed. I actually stood back in this game and was like, yeah, this is it, the swingman. And I do think that's something that Carlton lack. When we're full strength, you are going to lose some of these permanent positions. So you've got to remember when PeterV comes back, chances are Carlton go 2 forwards. And then you're also robbing Peter to pay Paul. BRODIE KEMP is that Uno card, that perfect Uno card in the terms of he can cover 2 bases with one position. So I really did enjoy BRODIE's game. Sam Phil. This is another guy as well that I looked at and thought, you know what, if I'm Philpy, I'm looking at Durds, I'm looking at players like that. I'm looking at Durds. I'm looking at Martin, and I'm thinking, you know what? There's a place here, isn't there? There's a place here I can break in. And he took his goal well. It was gifted to him by some great football from Quenton. But apart from the tackles, I just want to see him impact a bit. And I didn't quite see it from him this week. It's there. I'd like to see him get a bit more midfield time, if I'm honest. Because I think that he works really hard up and down the flanks. And I just think that maybe getting him involved in the game is where we're missing. It's going okay, but I do want to see a bit more from him. The defensive intent is really good. But to break into this side, I do think the only way you can take Durdin out of this side is you've got a guy banging the goals in. And Durdin would have snagged that goal if he got a handball over the top into an empty goal square. So aside from that, there wasn't really any goal-scoring opportunities. He didn't, for me, roam the pack very well as well. He was constantly behind the ball or ahead of it. So a little bit of work to do in that area. But I do like Philpy. I do like, there's something about him because when he does get the ball and he's got a great engine and he works really hard down both areas, which is very Voss-like, I just want to see a bit more from him. He leaves me wanting more. Josh Honey, I really enjoyed Honey's game. And we know I'm a big Honey fan. And the tackle pressure was brilliant. He works really hard. He played a very Martin pseudo-Durdin game here. And his link-up, his ability to find players, he was involved in a lot of scores as well in that forward 50. There's something about Honey that, you know, I've been a big advocate. He was one of the guys that I picked from obscurity, said, let's have a bit of a rookie deal with him. And I'm really, really like Honey. And this is someone here that I think he's starting to show it. It was his first game for what felt like a millennia. And he looked like he hasn't missed too much. He kind of ran out of steam towards the end. So I'm not going to really have a go at him in the fourth because obviously he was running out of steam. This was his first real bloody battle for a while. But he really linked up well. And he roams the pack really well. The two assists he had, he roamed the pack really well, read it well, got out the back of that pack marking contest, picked up the loose get and just, you know, did some magic. He's got something about him. And he's someone here who I really want to be putting pressure on Jack Martin. I want to see this next week, 18, 4 marks, 5 tackles and a goal or 2. And I think he's going to be putting pressure because I think Honey's got something. He's got something and I really did enjoy his game. Sam Durdin. Let's talk about Durds. He had a difficult job, played predominantly as the interceptor, did go to James Stewart for a bit, which was a bit of a problem for him. You could see that he was adjusting to a new system. Obviously, he had a defined role. When he was playing just the one-on-one, which is what we were talking about last week, of maybe is there an argument for him to come in against Essendon, he wasn't so bad at that because he holds his ground really well. He made himself available as the loose outlet down wide. For me, though, based on that game, you're always picking Caleb Marchbank over him purely because of the use and the fact that he's got something. Caleb Marchbank's got something. But Durdin, it was a solid outing for him. It was a solid outing in terms of that. It's his first day at school, isn't it, really, for him? I want to see a bit more from him, though. I'd like to see, based on the fact that he is a senior player, you've got to look at it that way. He's played AFL to command a little bit. I didn't quite see that, but that's obviously understood. It's his first game. Did some nice things there. His body work was good. There's a few times they got caught out of position. Took some marks well, but he was very good in this stopper role. You see 3 marks in midfield. He really did that well role, which was, he really did that Whittaker thing that we're used to of Whittaker of being the backstop. And he did that well, so give him a couple of weeks. I don't think he'll be far away. I think maybe another week, and if there is, heaven forbid, touching the wood, an injury, he'll be good to go. And I'd have no qualms about him coming in, I'll be honest, after a week or so. Will Hayes. Now, for me, he created a problem because the next 2 guys we're going to talk about, for me, have cemented their place as the Adam Cheris role. Hayes went on the ball, played wing, though, predominantly, which I thought he was spectacular. And we know I'm a Jack Noons fan, right? This guy had identical role to how Jack Noons plays for us. And for me, Will Hayes is better than Jack Noons. And you know how much I love Jack Noons, so let's be honest. That's a big call from Pom. Really enjoyed what he did. Really did. He links up well. That tackle pressure is phenomenal. For me, he is in my side. Now, whether that's as a Cerra role, because he did have about 20% on the ball, so you've got that rotation there if you want to. We do know that Fisher likes to play there, and Voss does trust him with that. And we also saw Doc last week as well have a little bit of time as well. So Will Hayes does bring that avenue in there. Whether that's for a Noons, which may be the case, you never know. I don't think you can drop Cottrell. I don't think you can drop Noons as well, but I do think Will Hayes has got something, and we are going to see him sooner rather than later. I did really enjoy Will Hayes' game. I would have liked to have seen him go on the ball a bit more late in the fourth when the game started to get away from Carlton. That didn't quite happen, but I do think that there was a real earmark of Cerra in this game. You saw two players really predominantly play it. Will Hayes did a bit of it, and the next guy we're going to talk about after my boy Dom. But Dom Aku, again, him flying for marks, that mark he took deep later on in the game was spectacular. And I think once he puts a bit of size on, I know when I was speaking to him, he was going to put a bit of size on, not too much, but as he gains this confidence in the game, he's going to be a very, very solid footballer. And he was really exciting. He really excites me. Wasn't quite as good as last week where he snagged the goal. You saw he had the mark there and he set it up, bless him. I'd like to have seen him just go for the big talk, but really building into it nicely. And there's something about Dom. Something about Dom. Now, Satfield here probably got the Cerra job. He was brilliant. He played out wide. He came onto the ball as well. Really worked the stoppages hard, which is very how, if you watch Cerra play, very like that. He comes out from wide, gets involved in the stoppages, particularly in the clinches. Really looks to spread the play as well. I did enjoy Will Setterfield's game. Just did the smart things well, and that's what Cerra does. He does the smart things well. What wasn't a real dangerous game, and that's what Cerra's role is for Carlton. Just to do the basics very well. Stay with his midfield core. Keep the ball in motion. Setterfield did that. So for me, he's probably favourite for it. Good tackle numbers. He took his goal well. It was a very, very good game. A very good game from Setterfield, and kind of went missing in the fourth, but they all did, and I can't really blame him because the midfield was at 6s and 7s. But he impacted well. And finally, Alex Murkoff. It was I mean, there's got to be a point where we can't keep talking about he's new to the game. 25 hit-outs, 1 mark, 13 touches. It was okay. It was okay, but he's not troubling the scorers, as my pop used to say about my cricketing career, and has to really learn, I think, to stand up in them contests and be a menace. He kind of looks like a little kid lost in a shopping centre when the ball hits the deck. It's kind of like he's trying to work out where he is. For me, I want to see him maybe watch a few Mumford videos, watch a few Todd Goldstein videos, and watch how they position themselves when the ball hits the deck. He's got one of the greatest role models of this at the club in Cruiser. Cruiser was very good at impacting without getting the ball in them ruck contests. That's what I want to see. But all in all, we can't really complain too much because he is obviously a young player. But I want to see a bit more from him. He's going okay. So that's it then. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, pleasure talking about this and getting it all through to you. I'll be back tonight on the Monday show, Blue Abroad. I'll see you later though in the week. Pommy out.